Hi, welcome to Microsoft 365 Copilot Agents. This is technically the final in our learning series around Microsoft 365. I'm one of your hosts, Mike Gannotti, here with
Darryl Rowe. Pleased to be here.
Yes, and we are pleased to have you because Darryl, last week you covered Excel, which was phenomenal.
Thank you.
And people need to take a look at that. And today's technically our wrap up. We talked about, what did we talk about possibly doing?
Well, we were talking about doing a bonus episode about Copilot search. We covered that in the prompt along-a-thon a little bit, but I think we need maybe to do a deep dive on it because I use Copilot as my search engine. I don't use Bing or the other guys or anybody else because Copilot just finds everything I want in one or two prompts.
And much cleaner.
Oh yeah. No ads either. No ads.
No, and not having to sort through everything. That's the benefit. But we're going to be talking agents today. We do have an agenda, so let's take a look at that. I'm clicking, and what is going on with my? There we go. And so a couple of things. I got a quick housekeeping piece to cover. Darryl is going to talk about Copilot as the UI for AI when we get to that slide. Then I'm going to walk us through agents in SharePoint, agents in Microsoft 365 Copilot Chat, and using Agent Builder to build those. And then finally using the power of Copilot Studio around agent creation. And then we'll have a little bit of a wrap up. So just one piece of housekeeping, you can find not only this video, but all the videos in our series at aka.ms/HLS blog. That's aka.ms/HLS blog. Also at the very top, you'll see a banner header that you can click through, and it has the entirety of our training series. So one-stop shop to quickly get to it just by clicking there, and then you can leverage that, share it with your friends, family, your pets, etc. With that?
Yeah, thank you. Copilot is the UI for AI. So you may have seen that before. You may have heard that before. I think we announced that at Ignite and other sessions. And really what we think is Copilot is your one-stop shop. Everything that you want to get to AI. So I can hit the icon. I can find it in my Microsoft 365 client. I can find it in Teams. See it in my browser. It's my one-stop shop for anything that I want to connect with AI. And that isn't just using Copilot Chat or Microsoft 365 Chat or whatever it is. I want to see my agents, my extensibility, talking to other applications as well, other applications in my enterprise. I only have to go to Copilot. I don't have to go anywhere else. So my one-stop shop, my UI for AI.
I love that. And that idea of I start in one place and I can just get to everything there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we'll be hitting on that with agents. So speaking of agents.
Yep. Cool glasses.
That's right. We're going agent mode here. So we're going to start off with agents in SharePoint. And it's one of my favorite things because it is like we're going to go through kind of an ascending hierarchy of complexity and things with the agents today. But the very easiest to get started with is agents in SharePoint. And I love it because it helps orgs get immediate value out of those large repositories of documents that they have, that search no longer works for them, browsing certainly doesn't, and they want to get value out of the content there into the hands of their users. So a couple of things to say about this, and then we'll jump into demo. Number one, every SharePoint site itself, the websites themselves, come with a ready-made agent, automatically scoped to the content on that site. And you'll see that in the upper right-hand corner. I wasn't planning on showing it, but now that I'm reading this, what I wrote here, I'm realizing, I probably should actually show that. So I'll quickly highlight that when we go into the demo. Site visitors can chat with the agent to understand the contents of the whole site, ask specific questions, and analyze documents that may be there. From an experience end, what do you need to experience agents? Number one, all Microsoft 365 Copilot license holders automatically have the license to create. That doesn't mean they're enabled for a given SharePoint area, but they have the license to create agents in SharePoint, and they can use them. So there's no extra incursion for those folks who have that particular license. They're good to go. For non-Microsoft 365 Copilot license holders, so this might be frontline workers, might be some clinicians, et cetera, they have the ability to leverage and consume these using a pay-as-you-go service that can be enabled so that they can go ahead and access those agents, use them to reason across the information, just like everybody else. And that's important to note, purpose-built agents, and then leveraging the power of SharePoint permissions, et cetera, to even get to that. That's all right there. And we're going to take a look at that. Next, when you visit a SharePoint site or document library, you can interact. We talked about that with the agent. I'm going to show you one created and show you how to create and the options you have. With that, within a context of a library or libraries, multiples, you can do that. With site editing permissions, so people often ask, what do they need to be able to create one? If I got a license, but what permissions? Well, they need SharePoint site editing permissions. If they have that, then they can go in, create an agent, edit an existing agent, right? So they can create and edit. They can do some things around branding with that. We'll see all that as we go through. Specify sites, pages, files, etc., and define some customized prompts for a given agent. We'll take a look at all that. And then finally, you can find the agent you want from the agent list, select the ellipsis, then select share. And once you've done that, you can go ahead and then copy a link. And there's 2 links now available, standard HTML link and one expressly for Teams, so that you can leverage that within Teams and keep them within that confine. And then you can send those links out. You can embed them in a web page, which is what I'm going to do, and take a look. So that's a quick highlight. This will be posted on the site. You can take a look at it. We'll have resource links for in-depth training, but let's walk through what we can actually do here. So I'm going to come over. I'm going to start off with a user. So I'm logged in here as Dr. Sally. And you can see here I'm on the pediatrics care site. It's just a standard SharePoint site that's available. It's also actually surfaced as a team in Teams. So there is a team for pediatrics care. We have a SharePoint site for that. But within this site, if we want to go here, let's quickly take a look at site contents. Let's say open in a new tab, and we'll open that up. It's going to show us we have some libraries underneath, like you might expect, including a documents library. And in this particular documents library, we have 2 that I've made blue folders. And the reason why I've done that, we'll take these off. The reason why I've done that in blue is to highlight these are knowledge repositories that we want to make available for clinicians. One is COVID documentation, and the other is RSV documentation. So these represent authoritative documents that have been approved by the organization and made available for clinicians here in the org. And you can see that we have here's this COVID and RSV agent. There's one that just says COVID documentation. If I select and click on one of these from right here, we're going to open up, and now I'm getting hit with the sign in. We were getting hit with this earlier. I'm going to go ahead. There we go. And so here we are, and you can see we have this agent up here. It's got a little icon for it. It has some suggested prompts. It says, welcome pediatric clinicians. Find the latest Smarter Health approved information concerning COVID and RSV. Use one of the suggested prompts or type one of your own. So somebody can come here quickly and easily. They can start to type one here. They can attach a file to have it look at that. They can talk to this using the microphone. but we're just going to go ahead and say create a COVID FAQ based on the files in the COVID documentation. Now, this agent's looking across both those blue ones, but we're going to say go ahead, and it's now going to go in here. It's going to start to take a look at the documentation in there. Based upon that documentation, it's now going to create an FAQ or an initial run, because I can query it even further. So there we go. So I could take this and copy it, pass it out to my colleagues. You can see that it's got references where it drew the pertinent information from for this particular piece. So I've got a couple of Word docs and a PDF that it's taking from. It's done a nice job. I could further say, describe in detail treatment for COVID. Right, so I can continue to iterate on this particular stream that we're looking at. It's looking at the COVID pieces here. So now I've asked it to describe in detail around things that we can do there. And perhaps now I might have a colleague, or even more important, a patient, where I want to provide some of this information to, and maybe English is not their first language. I could go ahead and say, translate the treatment for COVID into Spanish. And now it's going to go ahead and it's going to regenerate translating this into Spanish for me again, so I can hand that, maybe print that off, hand it to a colleague, hand it to a patient, etc., so that they can access it in their primary language. So it's doing this great job. I'm not going in and just searching and getting getting 10 documents of 500 results or whatever, and then having to comb through those documents. I'm letting Copilot go in based upon my prompts or queries, look through the documents, digest and bring back that relevant information. And it's all through an agent right here in SharePoint. And the beauty of it is, I'm just going to go ahead and we'll close that. Well, before I close it, notice how I can copy a link to this agent for Teams. I can just click here and share, and it'll send an email, or I can copy a regular HTML link, which is what I've done here. And what I've done is, we'll come on back to that initial page. I went in and I wanted to add this particular feature right here. So access the COVID and RSV agent, put it front and center. It's right there for my users. But remember, there was also a link for Teams. I could go ahead and then drop it into Teams chat, conversation, maybe do a tab for it, right? And make it a part of a Teams group. But I have these options available to me to take this quick and easy power that we're going to take a look at. So how do we make something like this? It is so easy. It's kind of funny. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to go ahead. Notice when I'm looking at the particular library, I have the option, and we'll delete this one after. It says create an agent. I have rights to edit the SharePoint site. And I'm licensed for Copilot. So by virtue of that, I can come in, click create an agent. It automatically, for that agent, creates one quick. It just gives it a default view, right? In default name, which I can change. So I can come in here. I could just open it, but I'm going to go ahead and say edit. Once I select that, I get a number of things, and I keep getting hit with the sign-ins today. I don't know what's going on. There we go. But here we are in this particular view. And so here you see I can change the name if I want. So I could just call it COVID RSV secret agent, because we're going to delete that. Secret agent. And I could change the icon. So my other one actually had a picture, but it's just as simple as clicking change. and then finding the appropriate image to upload from my computer. I can change the description. It says describe the purpose as an agent curated based on the contents from the selected file sources. I could change that. Along all these steps, I have a preview here that is actually live. So I can go in and I could say, for example, hey, create that FAQ, and it's going to show me what the actions are. Right now, it's looking at just the COVID ones. We'll change that for one last preview in a moment. So here you can see, since we're in the COVID library, it's doing it based off of this library, and there's that particular FAQ. Next, I can change the sources. So I love this view because it lets me do a couple of things. Notice it says I can add a SharePoint site. So I could add a whole site, maybe having multiple libraries, right, that are available. But for me, I want to, grab that whole site as a source. I can do that here by adding the URL. It also says sourced from documents, libraries, folders, or files. So if I have a particularly large document that I want it to reason directly against, I can point it to that. It's as simple as coming in here, right? And then saying add that library files. And so here you can see, here are folders within the documents one. If I come on back, we can move back here. There's documents, right? And I have folders. If I had other libraries of documents, I could go and look at those. And then we could even drill further in. I could look at RSV, which is what we're going to select in a second, or I could look at an individual file in here. I'm just going to get out of that. And so here I can add the RSV documentation and select that. Now it's looking at two libraries, right? So a little bit different. And then finally, behavior. Behavior is where I go in and I can change that welcome. Remember the previous one, welcome clinicians, etc. I can change the verbiage right here. I'll just say, welcome clinicians, and just click out of there. And what's going to happen is, boom, look at it. It's already updated in our preview, that particular piece. Also, I can change the prompts. I get 3 for a SharePoint, an agent in SharePoint. So this time I'm going to say, create an FAQ based on the documents. I spelled correctly, documents in the RSV documentation folder. Here we go, and boom, that's changed here. And then I could change the instructions for the agent. It says provide accurate. I like that. I always just leave that, but you could change it to say, a different tone or whatever it is you're looking for. And in all of this, if I did want, I could always go in and go skip ahead to Copilot Studio for more advanced functions. But I'm satisfied with this. Now I might want to come in and say, hey, I want to see now an FAQ based on the documents in the RSV documentation folder. And now it's going to zero in on that folder because I wrote that into that particular prompt. And you can see here what is respiratory syncytial virus or RSV, and then it's going in and building an FAQ on that. But it's reasoning across both of them, so I can always ask questions that span the two. Sometimes symptoms for each of these might be similar. So we can look at that, we can compare and contrast, ask all kinds of questions, and that's it. When I'm done, I click save, close it, and just like that, see, it should have added that. Where is my 222? It's not showing here yet. I'll have to wait for that to refresh and we can come back. But in the meantime, here is that preview available. And of course, I can come in right from here, copy the link for Teams, click get a share, right? Like we're used to, get that little pop-up where I can permission it and share it, and then copy the link or have it send an email to those individuals. And I can also, with that, copy the link and then put it on that homepage. And of course, I can come in, continue to edit and do work there. But that's it. With that, we've built the agent. It's going to be available. I can, like I said, link it in, make it available to my users, and we're ready to go. That is agents in SharePoint. It's quick, easy to build. And then, of course, with something like adding a link here, very easy to access from a user standpoint. They don't need to think about it. They just come here, and there you go.
But that's awesome, Mike. It's so cool how you can do that. I do have a question, though.
Yeah.
So who can access the agent? Is it everybody in the company or only certain individuals, or how does that work?
I'm glad you asked that. It depends on your permissions. So first of all, we always respect permissions around repositories, right? So SharePoint permissions remain intact here. And if you'll notice, so number one, the people who would access this you'd want them to be people who have access permission-wise to this library. If they don't, they're not going to get results. It's not going to work for them because they have to have permissions. We'll security trim that out. Secondly, because the agent is a part of this library, to even get to the agent, they have to have permissions to it. So this is for a lot of folks who are used to SharePoint permissioning, this is an easy way to get started. Leverage the power of SharePoint permissions. There's no difference here. It all work the same for your users and for access. And then there is the ability just to put this out there. So you can, for example, with this, trying to remember, we have manage access. It's hit me again in Teams. There is the ability to go ahead and publish this into the assets library so it doesn't show up in the documents area and confuse people, because maybe all the people who have access to the library, you don't want to have access to SharePoint. You can absolutely do that as well. So you can kind of hide it away, but give those who needed access, maybe in a Teams team or some other entry point. And that's SharePoint. The last thing I wanted to show, I did say I would show it. You should see once Copilot's lit up. Here you can see right here, I have Copilot. When I click that, it's now opening a generalized one for the entire site. So if I have multiple libraries, I could come here and ask questions. Again, if I click the ellipsis, you'll see, now you can see all kinds of things. We have the chat history, Copilot history, so I can see what people are looking for, all kinds of goodies right in this one spot. We also then see the other agents that are available here and have the ability, if you have edit rights, to create an agent for the whole site at a top level. So lots of things. I'm not going to go into that one too much. Where we've been getting lots of questions really is around repositories. So create them, add multiple libraries. It's quick, it's easy, and it gives immediate value to those large repositories that you've had. I do want to highlight one thing here in the PowerPoint before we move on. I believe I put it in here. Oh, I deleted it out. So you are confined to, it's either 20 or 25. I'll have a link to the numerical value on that. But when you add those sources in that particular view, when you're creating the agent, there is a limitation on the number of sources you can access. So I'll include a link to that. Be sure to look for that. It'll be in the resources underneath the video, and you can rock and roll. And we already demoed. So next, agents in Microsoft 365 Copilot Chat. I love this. I love it because chat is something we surface it up in Teams, right? So that you get Copilot Chat in Teams. And that means anything we do that way, I can get to via Teams on my phone. Or you can access Copilot Chat and standalone. But when we do this, there's a couple of things. Number one, there is this built-in capacity around Agent Builder. I'll provide links around management and all that for that, but it's a little bit of a richer UI for the creation and management of these particular agents. So stepping up from agents in SharePoint to this Agent Builder. And with that, you can go in and build these declarative agents, and you can do it by just typing in something using natural language, and it will create the basis of one, and then you can tweak it. Or you can go in and you can simply start adding the attributes you'd like. And I'm going to show you what this looks like. You can create these using this Agent Builder. I'll show you how it appears in chat. You author in two ways. You can describe using natural language, again, like I mentioned, or configure tab, which is what we're going to do, but I'll show you those two. We allow you to configure specific knowledge sources, and this is where it gets pretty cool. So you can call SharePoint libraries, right? SharePoint libraries around in your environment, one or more that you want to include as a part of this, but we can also leverage the power of the Microsoft 365 Graph connectors. So if you have sources like ServiceNow and others, Azure content, if you make those graph connectors available, they'll show up and people can simply select that, and it'll allow them to query from chat that particular data source and add that in there. You also can enable a couple of additional features. Number one, do you want to enable web content? So you can enable that source or sources internally that you're talking about and allow it to query the web and pull in information from the internet as a whole. You also have the ability to turn on something called Code Interpreter. So if you're doing like casual JavaScript or HTML, something like that, and you want it to take a look at your code and kind of tell you what's right or might be wrong, things you might make some suggestions for it, that's built right in here. So you can add that to your particular agent. And then let's say it's IT, folks that don't have the full Visual Studio or whatever, they can drop in, hey, I just wrote some JavaScript, drop it in, have it take a look at it and give it feedback on it. And then lastly, there's an image generator that'll allow you to have your folks generate images, leveraging the power of Microsoft Copilot and generative AI. And you can get royalty-free images that have never existed prior and never will exactly after. And here's that source. So this actually, the agents, and I got this applies to both of them, so it was 20. So you can include for your particular views when you're creating these agents, up to 20 knowledge sources when we're talking about SharePoint, right? So a lot of times folks want to look at SharePoint sources, and there's been confusion around that. Are we talking about files? No, we're talking about sources. So up to 20 sites, libraries, or files, folders of files, but 20 distinct sources. And then the file upload limits are in place. And again, I'll have links to those, but they're pretty large. You'd have to have a very large, really large document to hit those. So with that in mind, let's head on back to our demo. I'm going to, this time, go in logged in as me. And we're going to pull up Copilot Chat. And the reason why I'm logged into this demo tenant as me is because I have extra permissions here. Although if I did pull up our Sally, not the view I wanted, here we go. You can see that Dr. Sally has what we're going to be looking at. This ER clinician tips agent is available. So like I said, we'll go on back to my profile logged in. And right from here, you can see I have Copilot Chat, where I can query, ask questions. But we also have here on the right-hand side some predefined agents. I've got one that's looking at Viva Goals information. We have our ER Clinicians Tips Agent, and that's looking at a large repository, a tips library that's here. And a lot of folks, they've asked us when they have clinician tip sheets. That's an actual thing in provider space. There are these large documents that have things around the accepted protocols for diagnoses, treatment, patient follow-up, all that kind of information in these large documents. And again, hard to get to that information. So we want to make that available. I have another one here for a virtual agent for ServiceNow. That's pretty interesting. But we're going to take a look here at this clinician's tips agent. And in this particular case, come on. There we go. We have some suggested prompts. I created 5 for this particular one. And what we've done here in the clinician's tip sheet, notice it says summarize the tips around ICD-10 code. That's a formal code for various pathologies when they're doing admittance. And so it has the ability here to query based upon the code. That's a suggested prompt. We could also query based upon a symptom or whatever, anything that's within that particular library. But our clinicians are familiar with this. They know how to use that. So I'm going to go ahead and say, it says put that code or codes here, separated by comma. So if you have more than one, just separate by comma. And I put in an ICD-10 code of R079. And so we're going to ask for it to summarize. And I'll get a sip as it's doing that. Might beat me to it. And look at that. It's beat me to it. I didn't even get a sip yet. Take one on the next round. So here it's gone ahead and given me a summary of that. It has a link to the clinician tip sheet for that particular ICD-10 code, so that if I wanted, I could open up the entire document. But I could continue to drill in. So I could say for this particular one, what are the detailed steps for assessment? Right, so I'm drilling further into the document about the assessment for this. This is this generalized chest pain. It's cranking that out for me. There we go. Triage and immediate response. Ensure the patient is attended to immediately. It has links again to back to the doc. Patient history and risk factors, physical examination, diagnostic workup, all that good stuff, right? And then I could say, what are prescribed follow-up care? Help if I put a question mark. There we go. And so it's going to look now on this for follow-up care. It's providing me that. And then I could say translate follow-up care. I'll say Italian this time because we already used Spanish. And now for my Italian patient, I can print them off a little bit around follow-up that they need so they can, again, use that first language. But you can see we're doing similar steps, but now it's looking at much larger documents. We're zeroing in based upon actual codes, getting the information we need from this large repository library, and being able to quickly get our work. And then if we're leveraging the chat within the terms of Teams, that means as a clinician, I can get it from my phone as I'm walking the floor. So beautiful thing doing all this, but how do we create something here? Again, it's easy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select create an agent. I'll show you the UI. Here's where I can just describe what I want and then tweak it. I can come into configure, and very similar to what we saw on that last time, just format it a little differently and give it a name. I can give it an image here, right? A description, the instructions, provide details, etc. add the knowledge source, right? Is it SharePoint? I can browse or give a library. So browsing, I can click over here and it's going to show me recent shared libraries I've looked at. I can, go in, I can search for additional ones, put those in, or I can put the URL of a SharePoint site. Remember I mentioned web content. So I can toggle this on and that'll let them actually query the public internet as well, pull back results from there in addition, but we want to keep this constrained and focused to this authoritative source. Actions are coming soon. They're not here yet, but it is coming. And then finally, code interpreter. Remember I mentioned I could drop in some JavaScript, just turn it on. Now, of course, this would probably be a different agent, right? I'm looking at code. It's somebody, who's IT folks. And then image generator. That might be something of interest to my clinicians. I can add that very quickly there. And then starter prompts. It has 3 boxes, but I can add up to 6 right here. So having said that, we're going to click View All Agents. And I'm going to come in here to my clinicians tips agent. We'll click the edit button so we can see what does this look like in real world practice. Well, there we go. You can see I put the name. I gave it a description, 1 word. I was pretty lazy. Same with instructions, accurate, although they work exactly as advertised. I have my source here, which is this clinicians tip sheets library with a ton of documents. I actually have it populated with actual tip sheets from there. There's this other one I didn't show in the other view. It's called From Your Organization. Remember I mentioned Microsoft 365 graph connectors. Look at that. We have 2 of them available here in our demo tenant for ServiceNow, the knowledge base, and ServiceNow tickets. So those are available, but if there's ones to Azure data or other data sources, Salesforce, whatever the case is, those, if they're available here, IT's made it available. It's simply a toggle on, and now people can query that data source from my chat agent. And then finally, again, the code interpreter. Here's the 5 prompts that I put. I have room to do 1 more. We're just going to leave it. And then when I'm done, in this case, if I'm editing or updating, all I need to do is click update, and anybody who has the link to this can then access it. And what I love with this particular one is I can come in here, let's click share, and I'm going to show you a little trick. When you create an agent using Agent Builder, by default, the only person permissioned is you, only you. So you can go in, work with it, play with it, do all the things you need to do. When you're ready, then you can give it to specific users or anyone in the org. And when you do that, you get this link up top here. That link, when you copy it, you could drop it onto a SharePoint page. You can drop it into a Teams meeting. You can put it wherever you put it. I'm just going to go ahead and select that. I'll show you what it does. We're going to get out of this view. And if I come here and I want to, perhaps share it with others, maybe I put it into a conversation or wherever. When they click that link, it's going to go in and give them this view. And the box is going to populate. They're going to get a pop-up here. There we go. And when they select, in my case, it says open because I have already installed it. But if they haven't, it'll say to add it. And when they click it, it's then going to add it like we saw in that right-hand side of Copilot Chat. It's going to drop it in their forum, make it available, and now they can work with it. And think of it again like the apps on your phone, right? I'm going to go ahead, just get out of there. We'll click back on Copilot Chat and let it refresh. Come on. And something is going on with my chat. We'll just leave that at that, but it's going to drop it here like you saw earlier in the right-hand side. I think I have it. It should be showing here for Dr. Sally. Yeah. So there's that clinician's tips agent, and your other ones that are available for you will show there as well. So very quick, very easy. That's using Agent Builder.
That's again really, really cool. Second question, security
Yeah.
again. If you share a SharePoint site in Agent Builder, the people, you can't just share it with everybody. It's the same deal, right? But they have to have permission to view the SharePoint site.
Exact same.
Yeah, you can't
no
overshare.
Difference.
Absolutely, yeah. Oversharing has been a big concern for everybody, but I think that solves it, right?
Yeah, because I think when people don't understand is they think that, well, now you're doing something different. It's going to expose data that I shouldn't have access to. We never do that. Just like in SharePoint search, where we security trim based on the ACLs and access, we do the exact same here.
That's awesome. That shows really that people can create, you can let your users create agents, and security is already there. It's already built in. You don't have to worry about creating a bunch of new security policies. That's great.
Yeah, exactly. And there are things you can do to manage who can create, who can access the agent and all that. That's a whole other topic. I'm going to provide links to that. You can go through that, with governance with agents, etc. But it's just the beauty of it is your existing permissions work. They just work. So that's that one. The final one that I want to get into, come on back to my deck, is Copilot Agents with Copilot Studio. Now, I'm not going to exhaust this one or go into too much depth. I am going to show you where you can go, how you can create them. They can be very powerful. I love them. But, it's a graphical tool. This is taking it that one step up, because now I have the ability to pull in all kinds of data sources, not just some graph connectors in SharePoint, like in the last one, or not just some SharePoint content, like in our first one. I have the ability to connect specifically to other web services, to put triggers and actions, to publish it into different places for consuming, even third-party apps, and have it surface all kinds of crazy places. So let's go through. I'm going to let it do the explaining for me. I'm going to get out of this view and head on back to my Michael view. And here we are in Copilot Studio. So let me just go here to the beginning. So this is the entry point to Copilot Studio. And notice it says, describe your agent to create it. Starting right here, if I have permissions to Copilot Studio, I can just tell it what I'm looking to do. And it's going to jumpstart that process for me. So that's there. We also have a bank, and this is continually being added to and growing, of agent templates to jumpstart you. Like here's a travel one, a website Q&A, team navigator, IT help desk, store operations, financial insights. There are a whole other slew of them I've seen internally that are coming. So stay tuned on that. But to create, it's really, really simple. You come in here and you say create. And again, there's some of the ones coming. So you can see the ones, some of them I just showed. Here's additional ones that are kind of grayed out that are coming as far as templates. Or you simply select new agent. And then new agent's going to give you that same initial view we saw in Agent Builder of just typing something in or going to the view where you can fill the fields. And I'm going to use an existing agent to do that. So I'm going to click on agents, because here's mine that's already here. And it's called the Copilot CDC bot. That's what I named it, like a robot. And I gave it a robot as an icon, but this is a 365 agent. When I select this, it's going to give me a view in the edit along with a preview. Let that open. There we go. So I get the test your agent. You can see here a couple of different things that look different, right? We have many more tabs for this agent because it can do so much more. you can add to it. But here you see the basic overview when we first come in. There's the details. There's a little icon I put, the instructions, the data source. I wanted my clinicians to be able to query the CDC public website to get authoritative data and information back from that, especially in times when they're updating, maybe there's a disease outbreak or something, and information is being updated there. I don't want them just searching the web. I want authoritative, but I want it from this particular site. So I could do that. You can see here, here's that knowledge section. Here's where I added that particular website. To add knowledge, it's as simple as coming in saying add knowledge. And notice public websites, SharePoint, Dataverse. So if you have data in the Dataverse, I can upload files. And then under advanced, we have some enterprise data connections that are here. So I have Azure, we've got Azure SQL, Salesforce, ServiceNow catalog, ServiceNow knowledge, tickets, Zendesk. If we've added custom connectors, those can be there as well, and we can access those to add. So I mean, the world's my oyster as far as what kind of data I want to pull in. Under topics, this is what's going to happen. It's a little different. We don't give a bunch of suggested prompts. We provide something in this view called topics, and topics allow me to go in and kind of say, hey, what do you want to do? When somebody, it comes here, for example, a greeting, here's the greeting that they get. When somebody comes in, oh, look, when I clicked it, it brought it right up, right? Here's the message. And it says, hello, and I can change that. If we go on back, you can see I can then change, like when it exits, if they need to start over, a thank you. I can give all kinds of triggers here based upon the person's actions, maybe prompt them into a further action. That was great. Do you want to ask additional questions? Whatever the case is, we can add those various topics in here. We have actions. So this is to allow you to complete specific tasks. And notice we give you a number of them out of the box. So there's a bunch here, like Excel. Maybe you're working with an Excel thing and you want it to actually carry in an action, like get a row, delete a row, get worksheets, list rows present in a table, run scripts. There's all kinds of stuff that we can do there. Call snow actions. If I need to add new actions, I can do that. And look here, I can take a REST API. I can upload a skill from the Azure Bot Framework. I can do a new custom connector, a new Power Automate flow, a new prompt. There's just a wealth of stuff that we can do out of the box. That's the featured here. Here's our approved library. So we've got a bunch of ServiceNow stuff turned on, but a bunch of actions that we can do, again, right from here. Activities, I don't have any yet in there, so it's not displaying any. We also get an analytics view of our particular agent and its use and what's happening here. And then finally, channels. Where do I want to publish this to? I'm going to set up that connection for publishing. So it's going to be in my telephony, my publishing it to Microsoft Teams, to a website, custom website, a mobile app, Facebook, Skype, email, direct line, speech, group me. I mean, there's all kinds of scenarios. Custom engagement hubs, so you can create your own custom ones. In this particular case, I published it into Teams. And when I was done, I simply clicked publish once I connected it here. And the result is this. I'm going to come back here and we're going to open up Teams in this case. And notice here on the right-hand side, I have published this over. So now I have, there's my bot. And we don't need that. Yep, we got it. And you can see I've added queries in here, come in and ask it questions. What's the latest? In this case, treatment of rubella, provide more detail. And I asked it again. And then you can ask it to translate or different things. But I can ask it anything that pertains to the in this case, the CDC website. And it's going to provide me information that's authoritative and published from them. So I have an official government website that meets our compliance standards that I can query and get information in real time as I need it. And I can do it right from my phone. That's it. That's all I got.
Wow, that is very cool. There's a lot of fun to be had with agents for sure. I think there's you're looking at it as almost the next step, right, from advancing in AI.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's that way of providing those purpose-built, focused interactions for your folks, whether they're clinicians, frontline workers, payers, providers, pharma, manufacturing, device. I mean, it doesn't matter. It is that way to give them focused activities and information, but starting as easy as just going into SharePoint and click create an agent, all the way up to developing a rich one that can, connect to multiple systems, have multiple steps, automation built in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the way you can focus on just certain amounts of data sets. You're not spreading the whole internet, because obviously the internet there's views on everything, right? So you're filtering out all the noise and all the bogus information.
That's right.
To the the stuff that
what you approve of, right? Make that available.
Yeah.
I know NIH has the National Library for Biotechnology and stuff, and it's all the latest it's huge.
Yeah.
And they tell you, use our site. Here's how to use it. Grab the URL. Here's an API, whatever. And you can go into Studio and right away give people that instant focused access.
That's awesome. Yeah, you're not hitting any dubious information, which is good.
So that's it. That's all I got. This, like we said, we're going to do probably a bonus. But as more comes available, we'll be doing additional training sessions around all this. But you can always find this and all of the training at aka.ms/HLS blog. With that, this is Mike.
And this is Darryl.
And I'm late for a meeting, but you have a great day.
Me too.
Take care, people, as always.
Take care.
And ciao.